Hola a todos. Wow, está potente el micrófono. Tenemos un maravilloso panel hoy. Vamos a hacerlo en inglés porque tenemos invitados de todos lados, desde Brasil y desde Estados Unidos. Espero que sea conveniente para vosotros. Vamos a hablar de un tema que nos apasiona mucho, que es el mundo en commuting, ¿no? Los viajes diarios que disfrutamos día a día en México y que representan principalmente, bueno, en Latinoamérica, representan principalmente el mayor motor de movilidad. Tenemos hoy con nosotros a un increíble panel de invitados, empezando con Carl Keller. Creo que es genial. If you can present yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm here representing Scoot. My name is Carly Keller. I'm the Chief of Staff. Scoot rents electric scooters, bicycles, and motorbikes in San Francisco, Barcelona, and Santiago de Chile.
Yes, hi. In Spanish or English? Well, I'll do my introduction in Spanish. Soy Ian de la Garza de GoCycle México y tenemos una bicicleta eléctrica plegable de alto desempeño y bueno, soy el director de la marca aquí en México.
También tenemos a Alfonso Hernandez.
Buenos días, Alfonso Hernandez, director de proyectos eléctricos de APB. Hacemos conversiones de vehículos a 100% eléctrico, principalmente enfocados a transporte público, pero también a vehículos particulares.
And finally, Fábio Lorençon from Brazil.
Muchas gracias por la invitación, por estar aquí. Estamos representando a Volvo. Yo tengo 17 años en la empresa, trabajo básicamente con temas de movilidad y buses.
Just to start with the panel, I would like to highlight three numbers that I really enjoy when I talk about Waze and the commuting the other day. Number one, 70% of the population will live in urban areas by 2050. If we take into consideration that nowadays it's only 40%, we can imagine how commuting is going to be in 30 years. Second one, 55% of public floor in urban areas is addressed for vehicles. So for everything that is constructed in a city like Mexico City, 55% of the public floor is purely focused on transportation and commuting. Massive. Finally, for sure, environmentally, 73% of contamination for the atmosphere and all these areas that we have in environmental thinking, it's purely based on transportation. It's true that we're including planes and we don't have planes in the urban areas, but well, we have to make the number big. And then something that I heard this morning that for me was beautiful and even greater was, I was in the radio hearing this morning about the data of people that got their driving license in Spain in 2008 and 2018. In 2008, in Spain, there were 800,000 people that they got their driving license. In 2018, only 350,000 people got their driving license. So there's something massive happening in the mobility and commuting spectrum, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Just to start with, and in order to have a good view of your ideas and mentality regarding commuting, what's the first thing that here the panelists you have comes to your mind when we talk about commuting?
Well, it depends how you're commuting now. I mean, if you're using a car, it's obviously traffic. Traffic, I think it's the worst. But for example, myself, I use an electric bike, obviously, and what it comes to mind is I'm being very productive because I'm enjoying the commuting. But I also have a problem, which is the contamination, the pollution. It's when you're in the back of a truck and you're smelling all this smoke, it's just, I wish it was different.
Well, we consider at Volvo that, of course, adding to what you said regarding the challenges that the cities are facing now and in the future, the increase of need of solutions, mobility solutions on our cities here, and also adding to that we are maybe in a breaking point where new technologies are coming, where new ways of mobility are coming due to technology right? So at the end, we're gonna have a huge challenge in the future to solve. Basically, what we believe is that we have to bring together some aspects to have a efficient transportation and a sustainable transportation. We're talking about safety. We have to talk about environmental care. We have to talk about accessibility, information, affordability, and etc. So those are the words that I believe when you bring this topic in the stage here, we have to consider.
Right. Do you have any other views? Commuting.
Yeah, commuting. We know now that commuting length is negatively correlated with health, and so many people in the world have increasingly longer commutes and are increasingly unhappy, whether it's the fact that their job is in a city or that they can't get across town because they don't have an easy means of getting there. And so what I hope that I think of when I think of commuting in the coming decades is seeing people on light electric vehicles, on electric bikes, getting around cities, getting off of buses and walking and biking to their final destination. And I think that we'll all be better off if we can shorten our commutes and reduce traffic as a result.
I love the view on the health part. On the 80s and 90s, when I was a young fellow, and it was great times, everything around commuting was about public transport, subways, trams, buses, infrastructure that has always been requested in Latin America. What is the position of public transport nowadays in Latam? And what is the future for it in the short term and mid-term, in your opinion? Is it going to be a key part of the commuting?
Well, yes. Every day, electric vehicles are gaining terrain against all technologies, and they will be part of the commuting, and it's a trend to be smart, efficient, and clean while commuting. And electric vehicles will dominate in that sense, especially in public transportation, where you can make the most impact with the benefits of these technologies. Is where governments should invest all the public resources to have these technologies, because in the long run they are cheaper to operate. The total cost of ownership is lower than any other technology, even today, even here for Mexico today. So there's no reason why keep investing in other technologies, and saving that money in operation will allow the government to invest those savings in some other benefits for the population.
You want to say something?
Well, in the 20th century, we know that subways and metros became a major part of our cities, but they were massive infrastructure projects at a time when cities themselves were growing. And as we look at the 21st century and our cities become the majority of our population, now 50% of people in the world live in cities, and that trend will continue. It's hard to imagine that there will be space for those infrastructure projects to develop. So I can imagine that public transportation will continue to grow alongside our populations, but probably not to the rate that those citizens demand. And so we at Scoot think that there's the possibility that people will be able to get around from those major transit corridors, areas where there are great means of public transit, and to their homes by using light electric vehicles, bikes, scooters, etc.
Great. You're talking about new ways of entering in the being cooperative to the public transport. What are the biggest fears that we find in Latam for private investors or private companies to enter in the commuting sector? Which are the biggest barriers that we find?
I can try this one. Well, when you are talking about, of course, maybe we have a very eclectic
panel.
Yeah,
we
have some different points of view, and I try to bring a little bit of our experience and what we are work with. Usually, we work more with massive transportation that requires a lot of investment. So when we talk about investment, we have to more or less not 100% secure, but we have to foresee what's going to happen. And I will tell you a history. In 2009, 2010, Volvo launched a very good hybrid product. It was a bus, 12-meter bus for 80 passengers in Europe, and we saw it was a very good technical solution, and was bringing a lot of to the environmental care, like reducing 35% of CO2 emissions, 50% particulate matters, NOx, etc., and it was working really well. And at that time, we decided, okay, let's make some calculations and see the future, see what's going on with the oil, with the battery price, and etc. And we ended up in the situation where, at that time, the total cost of ownership of a hybrid compared to a diesel was 10% higher. And we believe that in 5 years, it would be break-even. So the hybrid would replace the diesel. That's what the calculation was. We succeed. We brought a complete factory to build hybrid buses in Brazil and try to spread around the Latin America markets. In the beginning, we had some success with Bogotá, Curitiba. But later on, what happened was the opposite. The oil price was from 150 to $30. The dollar rate went up 50%. The battery price didn't drop in the rate that we believed. So at the end, instead of break even, we had a product that was delivering 20% more TCO, was 20% more costly. And after 5 years, we have to shut down this production line. So those are the kind of challenges that, of course, depends also on the public sector to define policies, also to give confidence to the industry to invest. Of course, the industry will make his efforts, will bet in something, but this is one thing I'd like to share, because at the end it didn't happen what we believed. So I believe, making a summary of what I believe we have to know what's going on in the future. We have to have more clear view on that.
Well, I would like to add on that. There are three main components for things to happen. The investment, the technology, and the government. The way the government can help things to happen. Mm-hmm. So it's very important, policies and the government support to introduce new technology, because by their own private investors, they can do it, but maybe not in the best way, because they will only do it in their best interest, but not maybe the interest for the masses, you know. So the way to bring the technology to the masses is with the government help. So it's very important.
That's nice. You want to say something, Ian?
Yes, well, in regards to two-wheeled vehicles, I think regulation, it's necessary, but it could really scare investors, especially now where that scooter sharing companies and bike sharing companies are undergoing this block from the government, and that's definitely gonna scare some investment, at least here in Mexico.
I think the story that you were telling is amazing. No, like we try to forecast the future, predict the future, and then suddenly everything that we thought that was going to happen, then that didn't happen. No, like we have to adapt, and we always try to. And these areas that you're talking about, the government part is super important. Legislation is key. But how do we predict the proper legislation if we actually don't know properly what's going to happen? No? In the scoot area, we have now plenty of companies regarding scooters around, bike sharing here in Mexico. I have seen a lot of them in Chile, Argentina. They are like massive. How are we working with the government and in the policies in order to make them work well?
Yeah, so in the case of Scoot, instead of waiting and seeing or trying to predict the outcome, we actually work with cities from day one, which means not day one of when we get there, but many months or years prior to when we might introduce our service in that city. And to us, it's really important that we work with the local government to understand what their sustainability and transit goals are for their city and what they think their citizens are looking for, in addition to the kind of market research that we would do on our own to understand the opportunity that we see in any given city. And so today we work with dozens of cities in many regions around the world to explore what the right regulations are for that place and work together to help them understand our approach to safety, to compliance, and all sorts of things like that.
In that area, regarding the government, apart from the legislation that we need because we're building the future, what else do private companies require from the public government to collaborate with them in order to develop a better commuting, in your opinions?
I'll just take this for a sec. We have to use public space to offer our service. We're not offering this in behind closed doors or in private cars. This is about using existing public infrastructure in bike lanes and racks to allow our customers who are citizens, who pay tax dollars to have those things exist, to use it just like they would use highways and roads around their own city. So it's an exchange with us in a city. Part of it is sharing information about where demand is and where it's changing and how different neighborhoods are growing or shrinking, and also being flexible to what the city sees as the next chapter in their story.
Anyone else wants to add something?
Well, we experienced also some big projects on the BRT side, and actually the BRT was born in Curitiba, and we have a plant there. So this is something that was born more or less with also Volvo is part of Volvo's history in here. So what we always say to the public authorities is that first you have to have a political will to do the things, and the solution, the complete solution is not one piece, it's a lot of pieces, and like the former President Calderon said this morning here, it depends on the challenge the city will face, and it's related to its size and etc. So for each city, you're going to have one answer. And in public transportation, what we see as a challenge still is what we call first and last mile. It's how you get from your house to the first metro or bus station or whatever that is massive station. And if you do that with bus, it's not that efficient. And we have something called IPK, that is the index passenger per kilometer. If it goes down, the cost is higher. So you have to or subsidize or charge more for the fare, you know. So I believe that the new solutions that are coming could help on that. Of course, it depends also on the public will to implement that, to regulate that, and another aspect. So at the end, this puzzle will have a lot of pieces, and for each city, there will going to be one answer.
So moving on another block, I would like to talk a little bit of environmental. How important is environment? No, we've been talking about environment since the 80s. And taking a little bit more of care nowadays. I would like to know, in your opinion, they're always talking about electrification all around. Electrification. Is electrification the best way in order of improving commuting, or is it still clean fuels like hydrogen or biomass still on the table?
Well. All those technologies are electric. I mean, they use an electric drivetrain. The only thing that changes is how you store the energy or you make the energy in the vehicle. So the future is electric. That's nothing is stopping that. At least for the powertrain. How you store the energy or produce the energy, that's going to be what changes. We believe batteries are going to be the way maybe 30, 40 years more. We don't think there are going to be other technologies like hydrogen. Is not is very inefficient to make hydrogen, so it costs you more. And as batteries get more advanced, cheaper, lighter, greener, then there would be no competitive side to other technologies. Today, a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, the technology costs 4 times more per kilowatt than a battery. So if batteries are expensive today, fuel cells are even more expensive, right? And so some applications, some industries may be benefited from other technologies for storing the energy, like hydrogen. But I think the 80% of vehicles, especially in urban areas, will be battery electric.
Does anyone has another opinion?
Yes, we share the same opinion. The future is electric. And the challenge right now is how to make this technical solution sustainable, right? And when you talk about sustainability, we are, of course, the main point that comes is the environmental care. But also we have to work with the financial aspect and also the operation. I mean, the need that we are facing today is more or less like that. We have to deliver a free emission solution that can't be more expensive and should do the same as the previous technology did or does, right? So, and this is the challenge. We are in the revolution of the electromobility right now. How to balance this equation is the point, right? So we share the same opinion. The future is electric, and the challenges for the cities, for the industry, etc., is to make this equation works.
You want to say something?
Yeah. Just to speak to the. Today our cars are being demanded, EVs are being demanded to do the same thing that combustion vehicles do, which is go on the highway, go hundreds of kilometers. And so that's what the market is giving us, vehicles that go 150 kilometers an hour and have 300-kilometer range. And those vehicles take a massive amount of energy even when they're an electric battery. An electric battery on a car might be 60 kilowatt hours. If you take that energy and you put it in something that goes only 25 kilometers an hour, you get 150 bicycles that have 400 watt-hour batteries, and they can each go 50 kilometers. And that group of 150 bikes can serve thousands of people instead of the one person that's being served by that EV. And so I think the opportunity we have today with batteries is a massive one, and it's one that changes what we're asking of our vehicles. It doesn't mean that we need to go 60 kilometers an hour or 100 kilometers an hour to get somewhere. Average speeds in cities are nowhere near that because of traffic and congestion today. And so I think reframing how we use the technology that we're bringing to market will make us more successful.
Wow, beautiful. I always thought about hydrogen. I read a book like in 2002 about the future is hydrogen. I see that they were also wrong. Sometimes happens. But we have to talk about government, environment, and we only have 9 minutes left. And you were bringing up something very important, that was society. How can we involve society to be, or how is society getting involved in this new way of commuting?
Well, it has changed a lot for the last 5 years. And at least in Mexico City and also other countries in Latin America, with the city bike sharing system, and the infrastructure being built. I mean, it's not enough, but it's been something. So people are getting into the streets now with the scooters, with electric scooters. So that's very good. We still have a lot to do in terms of education, especially safety, because the people who ride scooters usually don't use a helmet, and a scooter can go 25 miles an hour, even faster than an electric bike. So with a very small wheel, which really changes. I mean, if you hit any bump with a small wheel, you can fall. And I have personally friends that have fallen and broken, an arm and something like that. So it's first is something that we have to address with the customers and the persons is safety, and also that it's not as dangerous as it seems. I mean, if you have to be careful. It's risky, of course, but we need safer electric bikes. We need safer vehicles, but it's something that if you do it well, you take your precautions. It's as safe as a car.
I would like to add that we need to spread the word with society, the benefits of the electric vehicles, because most people still think that an internal combustion engine car is better or has more power, more torque, they still think that's better. Well, it's not. Some people don't even think an electric vehicle will be able to move 30 tons. Well, they move trains, so why not just a trailer? So I think we need to spread the word, to inform people, so they don't fear the new technology. People tend to think that what they have is the best option, but it's not. The future is electric. It will be greener. Many people still think that if you don't produce energy with renewable sources, then it's useless to have electric vehicles. Well, it's not. It's very important to get the emissions of the vehicles out of the city. That's the first step. Here you have 20 million people in this city. If you get rid of the emissions here, you bring benefits to 20 million people. If you produce the energy 200 kilometers away, that's another problem. Then your second step is to make that energy green, right? That's a second step. You already benefited to 20 million people. So that's the way of doing it, right? Promoting the benefits of the electric vehicles.
That reminds me what you were talking about to my father. In the 90s, he used to have a huge, let's say, Volvo car with 250 power horse. And he was like, look, hear the sound of it. Look, like this engine is massive. And in December, I was there for Christmas visiting my father, and he got a hybrid. And he told me, like, can you hear it? No, it's peaceful. No? So actually, society is changing the mind regarding the car. So that was a point of, how to say, changing the perception of it.
Well, let me tell you a quick story. Before cars, we had carriages with horses, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem was the smell.
That's true.
Then we changed the problem of the smell and contamination to the sound, which is another kind of pollution, the sound, and also the gases. But we got used to it. Now we think, hear that loud noise. It's nice. Yeah. Well, we are used to it, but if you can bring someone from the past and hear those engines, they're going to say, like, what's that? Are you hearing that all day long? That's not good. Yeah. We just got used to it, but we're moving forward to silence again, without the smell.
And now, just to finish and following these future ideas of what we assume, I would like that all of the speakers can tell me about how do you foresee commuting in 2030, and how will it be in 2050?
I think in 2030 and possibly also in 2050, we'll see electric buses in a lane for bus rapid transit. It's a really great way to address our public transit needs without needing to build tunnels under our cities. And next to that, hopefully we'll see a lane of people in all sorts of two-wheeled, three-wheeled, four-wheeled light electric vehicles that are moving quickly, but they're not moving more than maybe 25 kilometers an hour. And then we'll see a massive sidewalk of people walking and strolling and getting around.
People walking again. I like that.
Yes, and in 2050, then now we can fantasize. I mean, but I think the air is gonna cover more. I mean, drones taking humans from one place to another. I mean, for me, it makes sense because you free up all the space that we're using. This 50% of urban areas that we destined to cars and transport. But I mean, that obviously has a lot of challenges, but it's still 30 more years.
Flying humans, like that too.
Well, I just think it's going to be better. I mean, we are heading that way. The technology is ready. The prices will come down, and it'll just improve from this point.
Well, I'm not the best person to predict things, as you could see.
I have proved it.
Yeah. So we are working towards the electromobility and electrical buses and solutions. We believe on that. We have to still equilibrate this equation, as I said before. We are working also on the connectivity, right? So information and also infotainment and these things will attract people to public transport. And that is one thing that we have to work. We have technology available for many years, but we couldn't do that yet. So this is one thing that is in the pipeline as well. And today we are working to improve safety, and our vision is zero accidents in the transport system. It's also the autonomous vehicles. We are testing now some solutions. Of course, it depends a lot of also the development of this technology and the applications right now. So this may be 2050, but electric solutions and connectivity in 30. That's what we do.
Self-driven cars. Where are the drivers going to? What are they going to do? What are the drivers going to do in the future with self-driven cars?
The drivers, actually today in some places there are not many drivers. Of course, this is a question to address. We're still going to left some drivers will left at the end, and we have to think on that and accommodate these people. But as everything, when you create something new, it will create a new opportunity, a new job. It's more or less like on the BRT. Before the BRT, in most cases, the drivers were very stressed and disputing the passengers, and they were paid accordingly to the number of passengers. Later on, with the BRT, the drivers are paid in a fixed amount, independently on the number of passengers. So it's an evolution. Before, we have fare collectors inside the buses. Now we don't have. Instead, we have people, organizing the traffic and etc. So we believe that in some way this will change this job connection, let's say, but it's something that we have to take care.
Wonderful. I think the time is over. Thank you very much for attending this wonderful panel. Thank you very much for coming with us today. I think you're going to have a break now for 15 minutes for the next panel coming. Thank you very much for all the speakers for being with us. It was a very interesting discussion. Thank you.
Bueno, agradecemos.